The top of the show about loneliness among the elderly. But these last couple of years have been even worse for the young. In America, by the spring of this year, this is a horrifying statistic, always shocks me. Suicide attempts by girls from 12 to 17 were up over 50% on 2019. In the UK, a study has found that 7% of youth have attempted suicide by the age of 17. That's a staggering number. So who knows what will happen? We hinted in the previous segment at Northern Ireland and Wales and other parts of the United Kingdom already introducing various kinds of semi-lockdowns to kick in on Boxing Day. So what will happen if kids are kept from their classrooms again by a post-Christmas lockdown? My next guest was called a conspiracy theorist for predicting vaccine passports were on their way. Now they're the new normal, and as the Archbishop says, if you don't want to go along with that, you're immoral. And she's also been sounding the alarm about the effects of lockdown on mental health. The psychologist Emma Kenny joins me. Emma, it's great to see you. But this is these last 2 years have done terrible damage to the youth all around Britain and the rest of the Western world.
Definitely. I mean, the whole premise in the UK of safeguarding children is to protect them from harm, abuse and neglect. And I've said pretty much from the day one that we started locking down that we were actually creating more harm, abuse and neglect than we'd ever seen for our young population. You've just highlighted statistics that are incredibly scary for us to listen to. As adults, we're going to be protecting children. But also Mind, they've done a lot of research. They've found that 9 out of 10 young people are feeling more lonely than they've ever felt, that 30% of young people feel significantly more unhappy than they did pre-lockdown. And actually 58% of people who are on benefits are saying that they feel significantly more depressed than they did before. So this is a global issue, obviously, it's affecting the whole world. But as far as the Western-centric model that you were just reporting to a moment ago, definitely we are faring terribly, and 25% issues increasing with development problems in children. So they're struggling because they can't see faces, schools aren't consistent. Obviously, the way that the world feels is incredibly different sensorily. So these are huge problems. And I think there's been lots of psychologists, lots of therapists who maybe have tried to get the message out there. But with respect, it's not a landscape at the moment professionally that's very easy to speak out, because the minute that you do, you either get branded with some kind of very divisive label, which makes it easy to dismiss you, or you get threatened. It's as simple as that. You literally get threatened by your professional bodies. So it's very difficult.
Are you surprised by that? Because you've been threatened and you've been sneered at for being an anti-vaxxer and all this kind of thing. Whereas it would seem perfectly obvious, for example, that if we're talking about mental health issues, I was listening on the radio as I was driving into a mother saying that her 1-year-old had just become phenomenally depressed and desocialized through the COVID lockdown. These aren't sophisticated concepts. Asking children, asking 5- and 6-year-olds to learn while they're masked and they can't interact with their friends. Why is the state's response that if you disagree with us, as you do, you have to be crushed like a bug so nobody else tries to join in on that kind of talk?
Well, I suppose that if you create a whole set of circumstances that very much seem illogical to somebody when you just explore the reality of that logic, if that's so obvious when you start doing that, you need to be able to crush those who point it out and make them seen either like they are conspiracy theorists or liars or anti-scientific or indeed anti-vaccine, which is so ironic for somebody who's had lots of vaccine to be branded that way. But it's a very clever typology psychologically. If we can make people afraid of things that are very logical being stated, then we can ensure that control is far greater than it would be ordinarily, because it means that people say, well, it would make sense for me to talk about this because it's logical. As you've just said, parents are talking about depressed children, suicide rates in young people are up. But then if I speak that out and then I get called a murderer because essentially somebody could get COVID and die, that is very illogical, but also very scary. So I think that's why. And mental health per se in the UK, look, we've been struggling for a long time. And it was so interesting listening to you talking about the need to believe in something greater and the need need to have purpose. I think fundamentally science for a long time has destroyed the idea of there even being a God, and it's deconstructed our connection with higher purpose, whether you believe in that or otherwise. What we certainly have seen in the past year to 2 years is actually people have belonged a little bit. You know, I don't feel angry with people who feel very pro-lockdown and very pro-particular sets of data that I might not disagree. I agree with. I mean, and what I see there is that they want to believe in something, and there has been connection, there has been community. People have felt that they've looked after each other. Like you said, when you're searching for something to believe in, those are really important things. And maybe we need to be looking at our society and saying, what do we need to learn from this? We need to do better to support each other, but also to hear each other's points of view and to work as a society and community. That's good for mental health and for children. But let's stop threatening people who are terrified about the impact long term of mental health on our society being so distorted and destroyed.